Hey everybody, here is what feels real for me today. I have been thinking a little bit about that expression, mind the gap. I first learned about that expression when I was really young. We were living in England, in London in the time, and that phrase was literally written on the platforms of the tube stops, the subways, and it referred to the space between the tube and the platform, and they were just telling people to watch out and don't fall in that as you get in and out of the cars. So that has always been my reference for that expression, and it's kind of trended, and you see it in lots of different places. But over the years, as I've been unpacking this mindfulness study for me, it's taken on a whole new meaning, and the whole mind the gap is now makes me more think about those empty spaces that exist that we often just pass right over, just like stepping right over the platform and into the tube. I mean, we cross over and pass by these open, empty little spaces in our life all the time. And what I have been enjoying lately is been noticing those and hanging out in those spaces instead. Especially with this stay-at-home order, there's been a lot more spaciousness and a lot more lengthening of our lives and expansion, and this slowing down has allowed me to just notice these little pockets of space that have been there all along. So I thought today for our mindful meditation, it might be fun to play with that a little bit and to see where we might notice some gaps or some spaces that we could lean into and explore. So with that intro, oh, one other thing, I am also reading this book right now, which I recommend. It's called In Love with the World, and it's about a Tibetan Buddhist monk who went on a 4-year wandering retreat in the streets, and he really in that time was exploring this idea about the gaps, and or as he refers to them as the bardos, between living and dying, and how even when we're living, we're constantly dying, and there are all these cycles of life and death. And so bringing again attention to those moments of crossing over from living and dying and beginning and ending. So that also inspired me. Okay, enough about me and about what's going on in my mind. Let's welcome you to see what's going on in your mind today, and in your body, and in your heart, and your soul, and all those empty spaces that want to be discovered. So let's close the eyes if that's comfortable to you, and begin to just settle into this physical space, noticing what the seat feels like beneath you, what the ground feels like beneath the feet, wherever your body is making contact, bringing a sense of awareness right to that spot and starting there. Allowing some deeper breaths to begin to bring a sense of here-ness, landing, physical presence. And even with the breath, beginning with the breath, paying attention to the sensation of air flowing into the body on the inhale, and releasing out back into the world on the exhale. And after a few rounds of present breathing, begin to see if you can detect even just this small space between the inhale and the exhale, between the exhale and the inhale. For those of you that are swimmers and do laps, it's almost like noticing the flip turn. And without bringing a whole lot of effort to it, can you find just a small space to rest in that gap between the inhale and the exhale and the inhale? And that is what a moment of pause can feel like. Just that fleeting moment in between. We can look for this gap in lots of different places in our lives. And I encourage you in your own time to perhaps take a moment and do a body scan where you sort of intentionally visit different parts of the body one at a time. And see if you can detect small openings or gaps as you're passing from one area of the body to the next. Or even as you're practicing presence in a specific area of the body, can you notice or sense into small openings, perhaps little bubbles in the body that have just been living below the radar? Little openings. Also with sounds, if you're doing a sound meditation, can you lean into the empty spaces between sounds? The sounds are always changing, always moving. But there are moments of stillness also between sounds. But for today's practice, instead we're going to be thinking instead about going on with the thoughts? Where can we detect gaps between thoughts? And so bringing the attention to the mind, what thoughts may be passing through. Just opening up to whatever thought is passing by. Just as you might sit and watch the clouds in the sky, just allowing the thought to pass by. Perhaps there's another thought, somewhat related or on its heels. Can we detect little patches of blue sky between these clouds and between these thoughts? As we watch these thoughts in our head move through, can we also notice moments when we're not having a thought? Can we find the gap? And bringing an attitude of friendliness to this practice. One of the practices that sounds simple but is not easy. We're so used to focusing on the concrete what we feel, what we know, what we think. But shifting the attention to the empty space is not as natural. It can feel sometimes like a bit of a free fall. Can we practice the floating? Bringing the attention back to physical sensations in the body and inviting a sense of softening, relaxing, feeling of ease as we seal this practice with a final deep inhale and long exhale. And then coming back when you're ready. I am noticing the moments of stillness between squash pawing at the door to get in. So the invitation for all of us as we go back out into our lives is to, once a day, can you catch yourself in a moment of being between all those moments of doing? Can we find the gap? Okay, be well.